Well, good morning, everybody. It looks like we've got a pretty good mass of attendees coming in. I'm sure that some more will be joining us as we keep going here, but wanted to start the morning and welcome you all to this webinar opportunity. It's the upcoming grant opportunities from the South Dakota Arts Council. Really excited to have staff from the South Dakota Arts Council along with us to talk about some of their granting programs coming up for the next year. First and foremost, I need to say a thank you to our partners. I'm Andrew Reinertz, the Community Development Director with Art South Dakota, and we couldn't make any of this happen without support from the South Dakota Arts Council, the Bush Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. All three of those groups have really been instrumental in helping us to create this series of webinars and professional development opportunities to try to make our big state just a little bit smaller for everybody. So during the program today, there will be some time for Q&A later on. We ask that you please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. That's an easy way for us to be able to track everybody's questions, answer some in the chat, and then as well as some live on camera. And then use the chat function to talk to the other attendees, to the panelists, to each other. We just want everyone to be able to have a little bit of time to build community as well. So now, before we turn it over to the South Dakota Arts Council, I would like to introduce Jim Spears, our Executive Director, to say a couple of words.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Andrew. It's great to be online with you all again. It's just been a few weeks since we all came together. I'm guessing many of us that are on this call were together for the State Arts Conference. So it's the team is the gang's back here with the Arts Council and the Arts South Dakota staff working on this webinar. This is our second, like I said, in just a few weeks, second to major statewide virtual event. And we had over 100 people registered for today. We had over 130 people attend the State Arts Conference. It's so heartwarming, and we're so pleased to see everyone come together in the state, even virtually as opposed to in person, which we will do soon, I am sure. But I just wanted to say a couple words this morning. First and foremost, I want to thank the South Dakota Arts Council. We have a great team of people in Pierre working on all of our behalf, working with in-state government to be sure the arts are represented and that the arts remain strong, equitable, and accessible across the state of South Dakota. And Arts South Dakota works very closely, I'm sure most of you know, with the South Dakota Arts Council. We really, hand in glove, a classic example of a I would say, a well-functioning, high-functioning public-private partnership. So many of the things that we do across the state that are sort of flagship events, flagship or statewide far-reaching publications, so much of that work is done collaboratively between our team at the Arts South Dakota, Sherry Cosell, Andrew Reinertz, and myself, and then the team at the South Dakota Arts Council, who you'll meet here in a few minutes. So I just want to thank them for their work and for the partnership that we have created, the friendship. I mean, that's the other thing I have to mention. When we come together and get the opportunity to be in the same place at the same time, it's we have a lot of fun together. So it really is a genuine and sincere friendship we have, our two teams. So thank you to the South Dakota Arts Council. A couple things just coming up. I would like to remind folks that we do have this year's the Governor's Awards in the Arts. We're still working on what that looks like. We know, just as with the Arts Conference, we need to be vigilant and cautious about how we gather, how we celebrate, and recognize the award winners. So we're still determining that, but we are going to have a Governor's Awards in the Arts on some level. And so in order for us to get to the actual program, we need into recognizing folks, we need nominations. So that's what we're in the middle of right now, is collecting nominations. You can go to the chat box and see a link to our website. But if you have folks in your community that you feel are deserving of really the kind of the highest recognition that we give the arts community in the state of South Dakota. I encourage you to go look at that nomination process and consider nominating someone or an organization. And then the last thing I'll say, and Andrew may mention more about this later, is that we are trying to collect all of the video. We have, I mean, 200, 300 gigabytes. I don't know, is a ton of information that was collected during the State Arts Conference. And so we are trying to collect that. Some of that will be available to the public online. Not everything. Some of it will be only available to those who attended the conference, but we're trying to make a few of the presentations, the keynotes public. So check back at the Arts South Dakota website, and as soon as we are able, we'll start publishing some of that information. So that's what I have, and good to be with you all this morning. And thank you so much, South Dakota Arts Council, for doing this with us.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. I want to thank the entire Arts South Dakota team, Andrew and Sherry as well, for hosting us today for this webinar. We're so pleased to be with you all on a very lovely November morning. The South Dakota Arts Council has been in existence now for 54 years. In those 54 years, we strive to serve all South Dakotans through the arts and to recognize the importance of creativity in the lives of all South Dakotans. And really the primary way we do that is by offering grant funding to help support arts organizations and artists across the state of South Dakota. And that's what brings us here today with you. We want to share with you some upcoming grant opportunities that we have. And so before we dive in, I just want to let everybody know that on today's webinar, we have Arts Program Coordinator Sarah Carlson, and also South Dakota Arts Council Grant Specialist Kate Mandel. And Kate's really going to be driving the train today. So without any further ado, I want to hand it over to Kate and let her get us started with informing you all about upcoming grant opportunities from SDAC. Thank you again.
Thanks, Patrick. As Patrick said, my name is Kate Vandell. I'm the Arts Grant Specialist with the South Dakota Arts Council. Andrew, if you could advance to the next slide. Today, the Arts Council will provide an overview of grant categories and deadlines, a discussion on who is eligible to apply for funding, and a list of applicant resources, opportunities for support, and ways to connect to communications about grants. This session will include an opportunity to ask questions at the close of the presentation, as Andrew indicated at the beginning of the webinar. Throughout this presentation, staff will use the chat to share links to resources. A recording of this presentation and slides will be available at the Arts Council's applicant portal and Arts South Dakota's webinar archive. Next slide. Before we get started, and you will see this slide several times throughout the presentation, I would like everyone to know applicants must submit applications through the online grant system. The link is also posted in the chat. Applications for South Dakota Arts Council funding will open in mid-December. The application deadline is March 1st, 2021. For those interested in draft review, which we will discuss later in this conversation, the deadline is February 7th, 2021. Upcoming grants help to fund artists and arts projects and/or programs planned for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2022. As a reminder for everyone joining us today, at the South Dakota Arts Council, we provide grant support to artists and arts organizations, resources to help artists and arts organizations apply for grant support from our agency, technical assistance to applicants, grantees, and constituents, and programming to help make quality arts accessible throughout the state. For more information on the work of the South Dakota Arts Council, including the strategic plan, please use the link provided in the chat. As a quick recap, in fiscal year 2019, the South Dakota Arts Council awarded grants in 106 communities, provided programs, grants, and services to 60 counties, provided $65,000 in grants to artists, $225,000 in grants to organizations, and over $292,000 in grants to schools and communities to host or engage in South Dakota Arts Council programming. Next slide. We'll begin our discussion by exploring upcoming opportunities for individuals. These include Artist Career Development Grants of $2,000 to help support any artist committed to advancing their work and careers. Funds assist in producing work, marketing or promotion, or reaching new audiences. Artist Fellowship Grants of $5,000 reward individual artistic excellence. Grants recognize exceptional artists, encourage creative achievement, acknowledge artists who contribute to higher standards for the arts, and assist artists in their continued development. Only well-established artists with a strong record of publication, performance, or exhibition should apply. Artist project grants of up to $2,000, matched dollar for dollar, assist in presenting an arts activity or project that serves the general public. Artist collaboration grants of up to $6,000 support expanding the horizons and artistic base of South Dakota artists through collaboration. Funding supports producing new work or reaching new audiences. Collaborations may pair artists working in the same or different disciplines and may pair an in-state and out-of-state artist. Traditional arts apprenticeship grants of up to $4,000 encourage the continuation of traditional arts and cultures. The grant provides financial support for master artists committed to teaching their traditional art form to qualified apprentices. South Dakota artists may apply for only one artist grant. To be eligible to apply for artist grants from the South Dakota Arts Council, you must be a resident of South Dakota for at least 1 year at the start of your grant, July 1st, 2021, and remain a resident through the end of your grant, June 30th, 2022. Artist Fellowship applicants must be a South Dakota resident for at least 2 years prior to applying, so prior to March 1st, 2021, and remain a resident through the end of the grant, June 30th, 2022. If you're a past recipient of an Artist Fellowship, you are not eligible to apply for an Artist Career Development Grant and may not apply for any artist grants for a 3-year period. If you are a past recipient of an Artist Career Development Grant, you are not eligible to apply again for this grant for a 3-year period. Recipients of this grant, however, may apply the next year in other categories of support. Moving now to upcoming grant opportunities for organizations. Any eligible South Dakota organization may apply for project grants for no more than 50% of costs and up to $5,000 for presenting an arts activity that serves the general public. Project grants must be matched dollar for dollar. Eligible South Dakota orchestras may apply for importation of musician grants for no more than 50% of costs and up to $5,000 for orchestras that need to import musicians unavailable within their home community to improve the quality of a performance season. Grants must be matched dollar for dollar. South Dakota organizations are eligible to apply for grants from the Arts Council if they are physically located in the state of South Dakota, a unit of government or nonprofit educational institution designated as federally tax exempt under the IRS Section 501c3, have a federal employer identification number or tax ID number, are officially incorporated in South Dakota and have current articles of incorporation on file with the South Dakota Secretary of State's office and have a Duns and Bradstreet number. Organizations receiving funds through an existing Arts Challenge grant or statewide services grant are not eligible to apply for project grants or importation of musician grants. If you are uncertain on any of the requirements for eligibility, links are posted in the chat to resources to confirm your status. The following groups may also apply provided the proposed activities meet the required parameters. Non-arts entities such as tribal, city, and county governments and agencies, parks and recreation departments, social service organizations, healthcare agencies, juvenile centers, and public and private schools may apply for funds as long as the funding will be used to support arts projects and programs. Any South Dakota 501c3 nonprofit is eligible to apply. Faith-based and religious organizations may apply for grant funds as long as the primary purpose of the program is artistic expression. Funded activities must be open to the public. The funds cannot be used for projects by an organization, an institution, or an individual with implicit religious content that may be perceived as advancing a religious purpose, nor can the project be viewed as attempting to convert people to a particular religious viewpoint. South Dakota colleges and universities may apply only if the proposed project benefits and is easily accessible to the public. Grants are not allowed for college and university events, which are normally considered a part of regular or extracurricular programs, or if the primary purpose is to offer course credit. If you have questions on eligibility, you can find more information online or may contact me. Links and my email address can be found in the chat. The South Dakota Arts Council has several funding priorities and policies that applicants should keep in mind. For more information, visit the links in the chat. The South Dakota Arts Council funds quality arts projects that employ professional artists, especially those living in South Dakota. Make the arts available to new, minority, and geographically isolated audiences. Bring the arts into schools with the support of the local school. Train local talent to follow through on future projects. Focus on underdeveloped arts disciplines. Next slide. Advance the role of the arts in economic development efforts, enhance cultural tourism, recognize and relate to the cultural needs of the state and community, reach beyond a town's boundaries to attract new audience, include financial contributions from participants of workshops. The South Dakota Arts Council does not fund academic research or formal study toward an academic or professional degree. Students pursuing high school diplomas, graduate or undergraduate degrees are not eligible to apply. Currently serving South Dakota Arts Council board members and staff are not eligible to apply. As a reminder, if you are a past recipient of an artist fellowship, you are not eligible to apply for an artist career development grant and may not apply for any artist grants for a 3-year period. If you are a past recipient of an artist career development grant, you are not eligible to apply again for this grant for a 3-year period. Recipients of this grant, however, may apply the next year in other categories of support. Applicant resources will be made available on the South Dakota Arts Council's applicant portal in early December. These materials can be found online and will include the Guide to Grants, which provides information on grants available to individual artists and nonprofit organizations. The Guide to Required Materials provides information on what applicants, both individual artists and nonprofit organizations, should include with their grant application. Blank applications and worksheets for groups and individuals to develop the components of their application offline, samples of past successful applications. Applicants are encouraged to join the Grant Applicant Facebook group. The discussion is monitored by staff, and we try to answer questions as we are able. GoSmart, the South Dakota Arts Council's online grant system, provides step-by-step instructions and a stable of instructional videos. Links to these resources are in the chat. The South Dakota Arts Council will host conversations to answer applicant questions, provide hints on what makes a good application, and explore and explain the scoring criteria used by panels to evaluate applications, dates and times to be determined. We encourage everyone to follow the South Dakota Arts Council on Facebook for information on upcoming conversations and events. Next slide. Keep in mind that grant funding is competitive. Be sure to review the guidelines for your grant. Today, we will offer some brief and general tips for all applicants. Review the South Dakota Arts Council's priorities, goals, and strategies. The Arts Council's strategic plan is available online, and the link is provided in the chat. Follow the instructions and application guidance carefully. Provide all the information. Be sure to include any additional materials or documents. Pay close attention to the scoring criteria and address each of those criteria to the best of your ability. Proofread the application. Avoid misspellings and grammatical errors. Pass your application on to someone else for review. Have an unbiased third party read your application. Submit your application for draft review. The South Dakota Arts Council helps applicants improve their applications by checking for mistakes or omissions that might cause ineligibility. The draft review deadline is February 7th, 2021. The South Dakota Arts Council encourages all applicants, especially new applicants, to take advantage of this opportunity. And then finally, take your time. Do not wait until the last minute. And then once again, as a reminder, applicants must submit applications through the online grant system. Applications for Arts Council funding will open in mid-December. The application deadline is March 1st, 2021. The draft review deadline is February 7th, 2021. Upcoming grants help to fund work plan for July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. And then finally, there's a list of contacts for the South Dakota Arts Council. This information will also be shared in the chat. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Kate. Let's see here. We have a couple of questions coming in to kind of start some conversation. But first, just to answer a couple of people's questions, all of these links, you should be able to copy and paste them out of the chat. Otherwise, we will also be sending out a full list of all of these links to all the attendees as a PDF afterwards. As well as the slide deck. So you can reference anything off the slide decks, take screenshots, do what you need with the slide deck there. And then if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function or type it into the chat. But if you could use the Q&A function, and I will bring those questions forward to the Arts Council. So first of all, I did just want to say thank you again for being here with us, Arts Council staff. This was a nice, just kind of good overview of all of the opportunities available. I know that there are a number of people on the session that have not yet had an opportunity to apply for grants, and so this is a good opportunity to learn more. I would encourage everyone watching to take advantage of those resources that Kate mentioned. You know, I'm amazed at how effective having those sample applications was for myself and for some others I've known who have applied, as well as taking advantage of that pre-review just to get some good advice. You know, the Arts Council staff don't really, you know, there's a whole grant panel set up. The Arts Council staff is not involved in picking the applicants on the panel, and so they're there to help you, and that's been really helpful for myself. I know, to be able to call and just say, hey, are we explaining ourselves well here? Does this make sense? this? Am I missing something? Because we all work so long on these applications, and you get so deep inside of it that all of a sudden you realize, like, boy, I don't know if I have any perspective anymore, if I'm making sense to anyone other than myself. So Arts Council staff, one question that came up that's kind of an interesting edge case potentially for the grants is Bob asked. He's an instrument luthier, so an instrument builder and repair. He was wondering if there are any grants available to him. I know that none of the organizational grants would apply because he's not a 501c3, but if there were some specific projects involved as an individual artist as a luthier, would there be the potential for applying for some artist grants, or what would you suggest there?
Patrick and I are
Yeah.
playing unmute chicken here.
Yeah, we're both so eager to help. Go for it, Kate.
This is a great question. And interestingly enough, we did have an artist career development grant a few years back that was focused on a luthier. He applied and was successful with his application in the creation of a new guitar, which was then put on display at the Visual Arts Center at the Washington Pavilion, which I had a chance to see. I think Patrick had a chance to see too. His application was a great blend of his construction of the new guitar, as well as his ability to play music on the new guitar. So his application really kind of spans the full scope of both the visual arts as well as the musical arts. So yes, an artist career development grant would be a great place to start, especially in consideration of this as the creation of new work and the potential perhaps for this luthier to reach a new audience with that instrument once it's completed. So hopefully that clarifies and answers the question, and I'll turn it over to Patrick if he has anything to add.
I would just add that there is another grant category called the Artist Project Grant. And it's different from an Artist Career Development Grant in that an Artist Career Development Grant requires no matching funds. An Artist Project Grant would be geared more toward, so for Bob, if he had a particular project in mind, as a luthier that might benefit his entire community, let's say, or the entire state somehow, then, and especially maybe if Bob had partnership, with a local organization or something like that, who could perhaps help with the matching funds. But there is that artist project grant that can be applied for by an individual, but does then have the matching funds requirement.
And I might jump in just to say that when it comes to trying to find matching, if you're an artist, I really strongly encourage everyone to reach out to your local community arts council. South Dakota is pretty unique in that we still have over 30 active local arts councils, kind of all around the state, including some new ones that have just started up in Lemon, South Dakota. So it's kind of everywhere has one nearby, and those are really great partners to work with. Many of them will be willing to work with you on projects, to be potential fiscal agents, to do a number of things to help out. And so I think that's a really key partner to look to. Great. So another question that has come in from John. I believe this is only the Humanities Council, but I want to verify with you, Kate and Patrick. He asks, I seem to remember a category of grants for the SDAC and the Humanities Council for small $1,000 or less grants with a shorter lead time. That's just the Humanities Council grant. There is not a short lead time kind of as needed small grant with the Arts Council, correct?
Actually, there is, Andrew. There's something called an Arts Opportunity Grant. And an Arts Opportunity Grant, the reason that grant category was designed, it's considered an interim grant, which meets the definition here of what we're talking about, where you're not competitively applying during that open window from mid-December through March 1. So it's as funds are available. The grant category was designed for those who couldn't really plan for a project grant application. So in other words, where we're at right now in the current year, getting this close to opening up the grant application process, I would encourage actually applying for a project grant. Number one, you stand to, if you need more than $1,000, our project grants are for awards up to $5,000 in matching funds. The ceiling on an arts opportunity grant would be $1,000 and also require matching funds. So it's really designed to be a safety valve for worthy arts events and opportunities that spring up throughout the course of the year when you just couldn't get everything organized and ready in time for the competitive grant category.
Great. So kind of jumping off of this project grant discussion. So the project grant, this is from Dexter. The project grant does ask for organizations to match dollar for dollar, but can you help clarify, is that specifically cash only, or is there a certain amount of donation of time or equipment? Is an in-kind recognition, and how some of that kind of works for the match?
Yeah, I can jump in on that one, Andrew. We certainly anticipated questions coming in on what a match is. And so I'm just going to tick off a couple of things. All this information, again, will be included in the guide to grants once that's published in early December. And just to clarify, 50% of costs mean that applicants cannot request more than 50% of the total projected project costs. And then as far as dollar for dollar match, applicants must match projected cash expenses with projected cash income. Additionally, projected incoming SDAC grant funds must also be matched with other income support. We certainly encourage people and applicants to partner with their community and their groups from within their local community, just as Patrick said, to provide and assisting in that cash match in dollars. In-kind contributions may not be used as cash match to South Dakota Arts Council grants. However, they may be included in your overall project budget and are encouraged. If you have specific questions about budget parameters, you can always reach out to the Arts Council for clarification. But yeah, again, although we do, we provide a space for in-kind, both income and expenses as part of a project grant budget. Any income, in-kind income does not count towards your cash match, and all match must be a cash match.
Great. One more project grant question while we're on a roll there. Can you only apply for one project grant a year? This is from Sydney, and I'm not sure if Sydney would be applying as an organization or an individual, but that's a question too, potentially, if could you apply for one of each and how that kind of works.
Yeah, so organizations are only able to apply for one project grant. And then our biggest restriction in terms of individuals and organizations, as an individual artist, you are able to apply for an individual grant as well as a grant under an umbrella for your organization. However, those two grants cannot be for the same work. So I, as a visual artist, couldn't apply as Arts South Dakota for a visual arts gallery exhibition, and then also apply to support that exhibition as an individual artist. Hopefully that clarifies.
Thanks, Kate. So let's see here. Let's do one more about individual artist grants, and then we'll jump over to an organizational question. When Thropo asks for digital composers updating their equipment for new projects. So where does, this would be probably applying for a variety of arts disciplines, but where does that fall into the granting opportunities?
I'll go ahead and try to field this one, Andrew. Thank you for the question. I would say that it's, what we didn't say on the front end of this, but Andrew, you actually kind of mentioned, is that all competitive grant applications to the South Dakota Arts Council are then funneled into panels. that panels are set with experts in various arts disciplines, and they're the ones who actually then review the applications and score them, and then have discussions about that to reach funding recommendations that then go to the council at large. So with that little bit of a process out of the way, what I would say is that we have seen definitely applications where artists are applying for equipment that they need, be that a musician, a digital composer who needs a synthesizer, be it a photographer who needs a special kind of lens. And so what I would say to that is, if it resonates with the panel, and you've articulated your reason for needing that, and they feel that that's going to really help put your career forward, then there's a real good chance that that would be funded. But it's going to come down to that human element of how does your proposal resonate? What is it going to do for you, and what is it going to do for your community?
Yeah, and Andrew, I'll just jump in. Patrick raises a great point here in regards to whether you're applying as an individual or as an organization. Identifying how that SDAC grant will help you is vital. And it's part of the narrative across all of our applications. You're identifying not only through budget sections on particular applications where that money will go and how that money will be spent, but that's a question that's also addressed in both the artist narrative and the organizational narrative across all grant categories.
And that's where I definitely recommend to have applicants have someone not in the field read their application, because even though these are trained panels, they might be in a completely different medium than you, and they might not know exactly the technology you're talking about. And to you, it's obvious why, I'm a digital artist. Obviously, this Wacom tablet is exactly what I need to be able to do my art, but the oil painter that's on the grant panel might not understand that. And so having someone totally outside read it and go, well, could you explain that more? I don't know what that is, might help you kind of tweak your narrative and make sure you're really telling your story effectively. Because I think that's the big thing with these grants for organizations or for individuals is you're really trying to tell your story to people that don't know you. Some of the grant panelists are even from out of state at times. And so you're really trying to just make sure that you put your best foot forward and give as much information and detail as possible. So now an organization.
Andrew, and I'll just say, you saw staff nodding vigorously. Everybody, I hope you heard what Andrew said, because it couldn't be said any better than that. Really take that to heart. Anyway, sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
So an organizational question now. This is from Nancy at the Levitt. As a new organization, so there's kind of a two-part question here. First of all, you can't apply for Arts Council grants until you've had 3 years of operation, correct?
That's only for our Arts Challenge grantees.
Okay,
Yep. You would just have to fall under the eligibility guidance of being a registered 501c3 physically located in South Dakota. You all saw the slide, so I won't reiterate it. But yeah, those are the only checks that you have to kind of box off as a new applicant in the project grant category. Yep.
But for Arts Challenge grants, it is 3 years. And is it so for them as a seasonal based organization, could they apply for their third season, or is it three calendar years of existence, if that makes sense?
Well, I'll just jump back in and say our Arts Challenge grants are not open this season, Nancy, so you have another year to get under your belt. And it would, I'll defer to Patrick. I think it's annual years, but I'm not sure.
Well, I'm just going to add to this, Nancy, that you, like Kate said, our operational support grants, which we call Arts Challenge grants, do not open for application again until a year from now. And at that time, Levitt at the Falls will be eligible because of it'll have enough organizational history in South Dakota at that point. However, you can apply for a project grant. You can go ahead and apply for a project grant for your season. And then just take into account everything Andrew said about telling your story, articulating that, how it's going to benefit the community, maybe how it's going to benefit the state. I do see from the text of her question as well, Nancy, possibly a concern about some of the artists in your season not being from South Dakota. And I always have to say, it's very difficult to predict the mind of panelists, but I think, you know, we always have at least one out-of-state panelist. And I think they would really probably see it both ways. If I had to guess on this, that yes, on the one hand, we like to, you've seen one of our funding priorities for the South Dakota Arts Council is making sure that we're funding our South Dakota artists. But at the same time, the Levitt's doing a great service by bringing in tremendous artists for South Dakotans to enjoy.
Yeah, great. And I know from personal experience, you know, with the Levitt that you know, you could write it for a number of, you know, the Arts Challenge Grant would be the operational support, so it's for the whole thing. But in your application, you know, you could focus on the local artists that you do hire, you know, and really lean into that side of the programming in the meantime. Great.
As a matter of fact, you know, that's one way to look at it. You could apply for a project grant that focuses specifically on the South Dakota artists that you have in mind for a season. That would be a way to frame it.
So maybe just really quickly, because I know that this session is really about the next opportunities that are coming up immediately, but just a real fast 10-second overview. What are some of the other grants that are coming down the pike? So for instance, there was a question in the chat earlier about the touring arts roster. So what, just the real brief overview for those, and then when the next 2-year cycles open for the Arts Challenge grants and those other 2-year programs.
Sure, those are all really good questions. So our touring arts roster, for the touring artists will open in the summer of 2021. And that application will be, again, through the online grant system, just as it is for regular grantees. That, again, is a 2-year cycle. So that cycle would begin and on July 1st of 2022 and run through June 30th of 2023. It gets so confusing because we are on the state's financial schedule and budget schedule, and so that's why we wind up with these strange dates. But traditionally that application is open in the summer and will open this summer, likely around June, and then close in September. Dates and specifics to come on that. As far as other opportunities, as we've talked about, we do have the Arts Challenge Grant. More information on that can be found on the grants section of the South Dakota Arts Council's website, as well as other 2-year opportunities like our South Dakota Statewide Services Grants, which is also a 2-year cycle, which has a very different application process altogether. So I would encourage, if you're interested in either of those categories, to look online at our grants page. And then as far as the interim opportunities that Patrick mentioned at the beginning, those opportunities are also available and can be found under grants to organizations under the grants tab of our website.
And I'll just go ahead and add on the interim grants. So these are the ones that are available throughout the year while there is a budget to support them, would include the Arts Opportunity Grant that I mentioned before, which is like a mini project grant, and again, designed for those when an arts opportunity pops up and it couldn't have been applied for in the regular time frame. But it also includes something called a Professional Development Grant, which helps take a representative of a nonprofit or an eligible organization to anything like the South Dakota State Arts Conference, or to an arts educators conference or something like that for professional development. We have something called a technical assistance grant as well, which would help bring an expert into your organization. I always like to use the example of, so a theater bought a new light board and they don't know how to operate it. This might be a grant to help bring an expert in to help explain that. And then we've got something called an excursion grant. And right now, in the midst of a pandemic, of course, there have been no applications for this, but I do want people to be aware of it because I feel like it's a really underutilized grant that we offer. And what it does is it helps provide matching funds to take students of any age or persons with disabilities. It helps transport them to arts events that are co-sponsored by the South Dakota Arts Council. So that could be anything from a South Dakota Symphony Orchestra concert to any number of things that we help co-sponsor. So those are just some of the interim grants that are available.
Great, thanks. That's really helpful. So John asks a question here, and John, if I don't ask this correctly, I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, so please type in a clarifying question if we don't answer it. But he's asking, is the grant funding considered compensation to the individual artist? So what I'm wondering is if his question is it taxable? Is it considered, income? But John, if that's not what your question is, please type a clarifying question. But if that's the question, what is the answer to that, Arts Council staff?
Oh, Patrick, I was really hoping you'd unmute before me. I don't like answering the tax questions. This would count as taxable income. It's additional income in addition to whatever else you're receiving. So, when you apply, in addition to other paperwork that you provide to the South Dakota Arts Council, we do also ask you to provide a W-9 so that information is on record with your grant.
So that W-9 form then, of course, is submitted to the IRS. So it really depends on the personal situation as far as what your earning threshold would be. But yes, it is taxable income.
And so then actually this is an interesting question. John follows up with what else can that grant be used for? So for instance, if it's the production of the work, he's asking, can it be used for other expenses, rent, food, the livelihood of the artist, or is it specifically for materials only related to the project?
It would really need to be specific to the project. We fall under the parameters of the National Endowment for the Arts, which is where the majority of our funding comes from. It's matched by state dollars. That said, there are certain things, and again, the Guide to Grants provides a full list of things that can and cannot be included in your application as well as your budget. So we would be really looking to support and fund the creation of work, the marketing to new audiences, and the professional development of the artist as an individual. We would not necessarily be able or capable of supporting those other parameters that were asked in John's question.
Great, thanks for that clarification. One more for these kind of interim grants. Do any of those grants exclude you from others? So the question from Nancy was, if we receive a technical assistance grants, can we still apply for either an arts opportunity or an excursion grant?
Yes, you can. Now, what we do limit is one application per organization per fiscal year. And
of each type? So
yes, of each type. Thank you. So you could only apply for one excursion grant per year, one technical assistance grant per year, one arts opportunity grant per year, one professional development grant per year. And then the only caution I'll say again about the arts opportunity grant, since it's a discretionary grant, you could also apply for that too. But what wouldn't happen is if you applied for a project grant and received that, then you can't receive an arts opportunity grant in the same fiscal year. So one is a competitive grant and one is a discretionary grant.
Great. Well, it looks like so far all the questions have been answered. We've had some really good questions come in. Oh, here, one more just popped in. Perfect timing. So excursion grants. Oh, so this is a clarification. Are excursion grants granted only to schools or groups versus arts organizations, or could any arts organization, any 501c3 apply for an excursion grant?
Yeah, absolutely. Any eligible organization. So we ticked those off earlier, but they tend to be 501c3, nonprofit organizations. They don't even have to be an arts organization necessarily. They just need to be a 501c3 nonprofit. Because by the definition of what the excursion grant is, the arts are going to be the destinations. So that's already in there. But it also, we've had typically schools are applying for this, as you can imagine, but it's not limited to that. There can be service organizations that have applied in the past, other groups like that.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. And nice. We've got quite a few more coming in. We've got, and it's good. We've got about 10 minutes left before the end of the webinar. So keep them coming. These are good questions. Claire asks, for individual artist grants, when it comes to marketing, could you include the photographer's fee to professionally document the work for digital exhibitions or marketing materials? Which is a great question, because I think that when you're trying to support the marketing, the best foot forward is to have as high quality as possible. And by the way, also consider that with your applications for your work samples. Obviously, you can't be reimbursed for it, developing it for your work samples, but the higher quality the images of your work samples, the better. But now that I'm just waxing on, Kate or Patrick, could you actually answer the question instead of me just rambling?
Yeah, absolutely, Claire. That's a great question, and I will just reiterate what Andrew said, and I will answer your question. But do make sure that the work samples, that the support materials, that everything that you're including as documentation and support of your application is putting your best foot forward. Keep in mind that our panelists only review the information that's provided as part of your application, unless directed and provided links to additional support. They will not go out on your website and look. They will not try to find you on Instagram to see what your photos look like, or look at you on an audio service to hear your music. We're relying on you as the applicant to provide the information that you want our panelists to see. That said, if your application is for marketing or for advancing yourself with new audiences, what Claire lays out as far as hiring a photographer to take those photos. Maybe you're seeking, we've had applicants that have been seeking to join or participate in kind of career groups, like the National Photographers Group of America. I feel like if I were able to have a membership with this, or able to attend this Photoshop conference, that would really advance my career. Ability to hire a professional photographer to take shots of your images and shots of your work would fall under the same category and would definitely be eligible. I would encourage you to consider that as part of an application for an artist career development grant. We certainly have seen that in the past, and that's a great question.
Great. So now one question from John. Maybe a quick clarification, and the full criteria are available on the Arts Council website. So I definitely encourage people to go there. But I think, John, to answer your question, he's wondering if a technical assistance grant can be used to pay an editor during a video project. Are technical assistance grants exclusively for organizations, or are they for individual artists or for-profit groups?
Technical assistance grants are only for organizations, and therefore, to answer that question, even if John was, let's say, was part of an organization that was applying for a technical assistance grant, in this case, no, that wouldn't be an eligible expense. It really needs to be more of an advisory role. In other words, somebody's coming in to advise, and the assumption here is not just a single person is being advised, but rather a body of a nonprofit organization, be that a presenting organization of one kind or another, or anybody else. So, instead, that would really fall under kind of like artistic fees or contractual services that a lot of our other organizational grants, when you go to fill out the budget information, there's even a line item for those types of expenses. But no, that's not really at the heart of the technical assistance grant.
So that would be a normal artistic expense. A technical assistance grant would be more training education. So for instance, hiring an editor to come in to teach your staff how to do better editing would be an application of that, correct?
Excellent, excellent example. Yes. So the two sides of the coin, you just articulated very well, Andrew.
Yeah, and I will just jump in quick and say we did have a artist project grant that came in last year that was specific to hiring a video editor as part of a documentary project. So that was an opportunity for an individual artist to apply as an artist for an artist project grant there in that category, and that was what the entire project was. They're working through a documentary, and it was an opportunity for them to bring in a third party to work through the editing of the final product. So there's a lot of different avenues for support there. That would be the best one to take.
Great. There's a question from John Dale, but John, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm going to ask you to follow up with the Arts Council staff after this session, just because we're running up at the end of our time here. But John was looking for some examples of some good low and no cost marketing distribution channels that either can be used in applications or used for an artist. And I know that you all have some really great experience and opportunities there. So thank you so much for the question, John, but please reach out to the Arts Council staff. I would also like to encourage you to look at the Art South Dakota website for some good statewide public awareness and marketing. We have the only statewide arts calendar, as well as a weekly arts email and some other opportunities there for artists. Great. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to the Arts Council staff, to all the attendees for joining today. This has been really informative. It's been a really great overview of some of the upcoming opportunities. I'm so glad we had so many great questions come in. That really made this webinar even better. So thank you to everyone who attended. We will be sending out the slides and some other information, including all of the links that were put into the chat from the Arts Council, as well as all of their contact info. So look into your email for that shortly. We'll also have a recording of this up within about a day or two, probably. So since it's Friday, early next week, it will be up on the Arts South Dakota webinars archive page. And just wanted to say thank you again so much. Please reach out to anyone at the Arts Council. Reach out to any of us at Arts South Dakota with any questions, anything you have. If you have ideas for upcoming webinars, things you've been really itching to learn about, please let us know. We are working on a series, hopefully for the new year, based around arts marketing, kind of a 3-part series we're looking to do, starting with taking high quality photography of your 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional art or your performances, then basic galleries, and then potentially all the way up to web stores and SEO training. So we're fingers crossed that that's all coming together, but that should happen early in the new year. But please reach out to us at any time with any thoughts. And I just wanted to say thank you again so much for joining us today, and for the Arts Council staff for all of their time and helping answer everyone's questions today.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and the entire Arts South Dakota team. We love to be able to do this, and what a great group today and great questions. And we really hope we've helped clarify some things for you. And we hope to see you at application time.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody.